Good evening. Well, thanks for everybody for standing. I don't have to ask you to rise a little bit later. So, on behalf of the Exchange Club of San Ramon Valley, I welcome you to our annual 9/11 Remembrance Ceremony. We're so honored today to be here at the All Wars Memorial to pay special tribute to our first responders and to those that defend freedom. And it's just awesome on this occasion to be surrounded by so many of our neighbors, community volunteers, students, scouts, civic leaders, elected officials and public servants, our military and veterans, Gold Star families, and police and fire service men and women. Thank you all so much for being here. At this time, we're going to have the presentation of the colors by the Danville Police and San Ramon Valley Fire Department Color Guard. And we're going to remain standing for our national anthem, which will be followed by the invocation given by Chaplain Hugh Keith.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous height o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare bursting in, gave proof through the night that the flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Please join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for allowing us to gather here in this sacred space again to remember the tragic events of 18 years ago today. We dare not, we cannot, and we will not ever forget. As we join here as community in this beautiful San Ramon Valley, We join all those who have and are doing likewise all across the nation. We ask again for your love, care, and guidance to be with all who suffered loss during 9/11. Comfort those who struggle still today. We thank you for all of our first responders who rush into harm's way on our behalf. Especially bless them and their families, we ask. We thank you, and we ask these things in your holy name. Amen.
Please be seated. And thank you to the Monte Vista Choir, led by Rosalind Neisinger, for the Star Spangled Banner, and you'll hear more from them tonight. The Exchange Club is proud to host this ceremony this evening as we remember the tragedy and grief of 9/11, but more importantly, we're here to salute the courage that was displayed on that day and days since by our first responders, military, and law enforcement. The Exchange Club is a century-old national service organization whose core values are family, community, and country. And our local club is one of about 600 nationwide, and our members are joined by about 20,000 in the country. In addition to this ceremony, our other major local events in the valley here are the establishment and maintenance of 14 freedom shrines in various schools and public places in the valley. We have scholarship competitions for our young leaders, and we develop awareness of child safety and the prevention of child abuse. We also host a monthly luncheon meeting that's highlighted by a variety of speakers who are leaders inside and outside of our community. And it's through these activities that the Exchange Club strives to benefit our youth, promote pride in our country, and educate its members so that we may better serve our communities. If you'd like to learn more about the Exchange Club and membership, or are interested in coming to one of our luncheons, we have a table right down the path here, and please pick up some information. We also invite all students grade 4 through 12 in the San Ramon Valley to join in on our 9/11 essay competition. There are also informational flyers on our table here tonight. This year's theme is, how do the effects of 9/11/2001 still impact those who were not yet born that fateful day? There are cash prizes that will be awarded to all grade levels, and about $2,000 total. So thanks for the Exchange Club for its generosity. Now it's my honor to introduce the MC tonight, our past president of the Exchange Club and founding member, and the current vice mayor of the town of Danville, Miss Karen Stepper.
For those of you that are here that have come to represent all the Americans who couldn't join us here directly, we have all pledged we will never forget on that fateful day. We will never forget our first responders who served with honor to defend America, and we will never forget to cherish the memory of friends, family, colleagues, and our protectors who gave everything. We will introduce and recognize many first responders and our honored guests, all of whom you are, but I do have some that I'm going to introduce individually throughout the ceremony. At such times, we ask that those who are recognized please stand and wave so that people can see where you are, and we'll ask the audience to hold their applause so that we can introduce these people fairly efficiently and quickly. We want you to be able to find these people afterwards and talk to them. They represent all the best of our community and all of those that you have been here today that we've come to celebrate. So we want our first responders to go home and know that they have felt the love and support of the community that they protect. For those are the lives around us that they saved and changed. So thank you, Sandy. Thank you for that wonderful opening by the Danville Police and the San Ramon Valley Fire Protection District, the Honor Guard. Thank you to Sheriff office who has provided the bagpiper. Sergeant Ryan Sullivan has been a part of many of our ceremonies. Blaine Whiteman is doing the videography today, and John Albano's doing the photography. And they've volunteered, and hopefully that will get on CCTV, so you'll have a chance to share this ceremony with other people in the future. We ask that before you leave, you go back and visit the tables right there across the bridge where the ice cream is going to be at the end, but mostly so that you can see the historical models, the rock that is from the actual World Trade Tower, and any photos that people have brought with them. There's also a postcard table for our Blue Star moms. Remember that people are serving as we sit here tonight, and that they want to hear from you how much that means to their lives and to your lives. We also have thank you posters for you and the kids to please write a thank you note on those posters before you leave, and tell them any special situation that they have helped you in. The Exchange Club members and table are back there to assist you, so if you need a chair or something, please let us know throughout the ceremony. We have a special mission for youth in Exchange Club. Exchange Club is a national organization, but we see that as a way to educate our youth in what the America's founding documents are that are in our schools. And of course, we want to recognize those students who are participating here today. So I would like to have a big hand in a moment for all the Monte Vista High School Chamber singers, who I'm not going to ask them to get up and down again, who did such an amazing job with Star Spangled Banner. Especially the Scouts and their leaders who grace this ceremony every year with the 50 Exchange Club flags so proudly. And we'll get better at this clap when I clap. And the leadership students that are here today. So for all those youth, let's have a big hand for participating in our ceremony today. I'd like to also thank our sponsors, many of whom have been with us almost since the beginning, because our first one was 14 years ago. It's Chief Paige Meyer for the San Ramon Valley Fire Protection District. I'm sure they'll stand and remain standing as I call their names. So, Chief Meyer. And please hold your applause and till I get through the sponsors. Chief Alan Shields for the town of Danville, also an Exchange Club member. The town of Danville, represented by our town manager, Joe Calabrigo. Orieliahu, NGO, who has provided the ice cream for years, represented by Catherine Lewis. Tom Garino with PG&E, who's provided all our scholarship money for the last 14 years. Dennis Steiner of Graham Hitch Cremation and Memorial Center, who has provided the wreath and the roses for this ceremony. Ken Mintz with AT&T, who fostered the Freedom Shrines that are in our schools. Beverly Gandolfo, Safeway Alamo, has supported this for many, many years, and there are things afterwards that you can share in. And David Miller, the Hot Summer Sundays Car Show team, because raise your hand if you have seen the banner across the street in Danville for the last 2 weeks advertising this ceremony. David got a new banner made this year, so big hand, thank you. For all of our sponsors, appreciate that. Well, we know why we are here each year, to share our hearts and prayers and memories, especially with the Gold Star families who have joined us today. And for anyone out here who has lost a beloved coworker, friend, family member, worker in the attack on American soil, September 11th, 2001. At a time when the internet now sells shirts that says, America deserved 9/11, thank God all of you are here today to say we will never forget the power and the virtue and the help that America has given not only on its own soil, but across the globe. So for you who are here to celebrate today, the first responders, they are the people who walk towards danger in the face of the hurricanes in Florida, the campfire firestorms again this year in California, the active shooters in Gilroy, and our soldiers who are in constant readiness against suicide bombers to biological threats around the globe. First, I would like to start that recognition with those whom we also will never forget. And FDR said that when we were bombed on Pearl Harbor. We have a Pearl Harbor survivor here today. Unfortunately, we lost another Pearl Harbor survivor today on the Arizona. And there are only three, I believe, left. Three. This is the Pearl Harbor sons and daughters in the front row here. And our Pearl Harbor survivor, can he stand, is Mickey Gannon. All right. So on Mickey's behalf, I'll invite you to his birthday party on the U.S. Hornet this November when he turns 100 years old. Well, the events on September 11th marked a huge turning point in the history of the United States as we entered a global war on terrorism. For on 9/11, it was the largest emergency response ever in our history when we lost 2,983 friends, coworkers, and families. Today, on this 18th anniversary, the intensity of 9/11 continues. And so now we remember our fallen first responders. First, I would like to invite Chief Paige Meyer to the podium. And as he comes forward, I would like to ask all firefighters to stand. So all firefighters that are here today, if they would stand. So, thank you. They are standing in memory of 343 firefighters who lost their lives in defense of the World Trade Towers on 9/11. Those who traveled in New York afterwards in response have faced terrible suffering from the horrific hazardous materials that blanketed the World Trade Towers at Ground Zero. And for those who are at risk every day for us in this community as they fight the Camp Fire, the Napa fires. And thank you for sharing and demonstrating the courage to go toward a flame instead of away. It's a courage that we recognize for all our first responders and especially for the fire districts.
Thank you, Karen. First off, as always, we'd like to thank the Exchange Club partnering with them in this event. It is a first-class event, as we know. So that's on behalf of the Fire District and the Board of Directors. Next, I'd like to recognize and thank everyone that showed up today to observe and to honor our firefighters, police officers, military personnel, and veterans. It is always refreshing. It is always a great feeling to look out at a crowd that never gets smaller. You come back every year as a community to honor those that have given the ultimate sacrifice, and that makes me very proud to represent this fire district. We're very humbled to be a part of that, and I say that on behalf of all of my firefighters. I'm fortunate enough today to have my daughter Ellie and my son Lincoln in the crowd. They don't really want to go with their dad too often these days, but hopefully they think I'm cooler after this. No, they're already shaking their head. Yeah. No, but I'm proud. Whether they're not, I'm proud to share this day with them. I think as I come back, I reflect on this day as it gets closer, and I think of all the kids, younger and older kids, that are here watching us recognize some very special people, and as Karen said earlier, we will never forget. And so I think we pass that on to them, and it hopefully resonates with them as they get older and they carry on this tradition. Finally, the part of this that I always, it inspires me. It's always, I know this is a solemn day, but for me, I always smile. And I run into these ladies and these families on a regular basis, and they light up the room. And that's our Gold Star families. You know, you guys know I love you. Every time we get to hang out with you, and sometimes even drink a little wine, hopefully, you know. Don't tell anybody about that. But you guys are amazing. You guys do you've given the ultimate sacrifice, and for that we will never be able to repay you. God bless you, and God bless your family, and thank you for all you've done. Thanks.
And now we would like to recognize the police that are here. In particular, I'd like to ask Chief Shields to come forward. And while he does so, I'd like to ask to stand for the California Highway Patrol, Lieutenant Hahn, and for San Ramon Police Department, Craig Stevens. And I would also like anyone in the audience, I want you to know I brought my special flag today, the blue wooden one up there on the tree, because we depend so much for the safety of this community on our police. And so anyone who's the police, would you please all stand that are police so that we can honor those who handled the evacuation from disasters, who confronted the shooters, who defended the tenets of freedom for the 71 law enforcement officers that were lost on 9/11. So.
Hi, so I'm Alan Shields. I'm your Chief of Police for the town of Danville, and I'd like to thank the Exchange Club. Councilmember Stepper, she was very clear in that we should never forget, and I think that's the theme for what's taking place today. When I look, and I want to give special thanks to our Gold Star families. It's a tough thing to serve and suffer that loss. And one of the things when I look out and I think about that we are almost a generation away from when these towers went down, I think of the sacrifice and the remembrance of you and your families. And I can't be more proud of how you've embraced that. So thank you very much for that. So forgetfulness is actually very easy, isn't it? It's easy to forget. It's easy to forget because we don't feel pain when we forget. We don't have to actually do anything. It's an unintentional life when we choose to forget. But we know if we choose to forget, that evil around the corner will always sneak up behind us and harm us in ways that we can't imagine. And so when I think about forgetfulness being easy, I immediately come back to the fact that we're Americans and we just don't do easy. We never do easy. And so I'm very grateful that I'm surrounded by a community and I get to serve a community. And all of the men and women that work in law enforcement and fire and EMS and in the military get to serve a community that comes together to create a culture of public safety. A community that says we're not going to stand for evil acts in our community. We're not going to stand for evil. And when you choose not to stand for evil, you choose to actually see something and say something. You choose to come together and support goodness. A lot of what we do is in the way of prevention. We're not reactive by nature. We want to prevent these things from happening. So a lot of what we do with our partners here is we work closely with the FBI. We work closely with the, as Agent Bennett would say, the alphabet agencies. We work closely with them to try to prevent these. And so you can be assured that your law enforcement agencies are working hard to keep evil from happening. And we also work within the community to try to prevent these incidents from happening. So one of the things we do is we put on some run, hide, fight training where we go and we teach staff, we teach faculty at schools and faith institutions to take action. One of the things that we see in any of these tragedies, the one thing that always emerges are American heroes. People that step up and do something. And they mitigate a lot of those tragedies, or because they had the courage to say something, they stopped them altogether. And so when we're a generation away, when we can look in this crowd and about 50% of us didn't firsthand witness this happen, these events are important to us. And so I would leave with this. Let's, and this is what I kind of leave the trainings with, is let's remember this. Let's let this charge us to not let this happen again. Let's work on the prevention, but then let's not empower them. Let's leave here. Let's enjoy our parks. Let's enjoy our children. Let's give them hugs. Let's give them the kisses they need. And let's live an intentional life where we say that this is not going to happen again. So God bless all of you. Thank you for coming. And God bless America.
Of course, the attack on towers was defended by our military and so many people who signed up and swore to protect America, an oath, and have gone overseas to do so. We praise their patriotism and acknowledge the legacy of honor, for they are as revered as those who are on this quotation wall behind me, and they always will be remembered. I would like to ask, are there any currently serving military to please stand? Okay, so let's have a hand for those people. Thank you. And now I'm going to ask those who are heads of our VSOs, Veteran Service Organizations, to raise their hand and to stand, and those around them can stand with them, but if the commander could raise your hand, we will recognize those and what service they are. So, Michael Reagan, Commander of VFW, Post 75. Eric Ardell, Commander of American Legion, Post 246. Colonel Alan Cruz, Commandant of the Marine Corps League. Gary Estrella, President of the Vietnam Veterans of Diablo Valley. Gary Ford, the Military Order of World Wars. Patty Wernette, Military Officers Association of America. Lori Salmons, the Bay Area Navy. I know you're here, Lori. I just can't see all your hands. There it is. A new group in our organization, Bay Area Navy Nurse Corps. Jerry Yahiro, East Bay Stand Down. Ron Lowe, the director of the Veterans Memorial Building. Joining in those are those who support these organizations, the Blue Star Moms, Chris McCracken, and the Gold Star families that are here today. So I would also like to thank those who support those people. The Sentinels of Freedom, Mike Conklin and Peggy Conklin are here. The Contra Costa Veteran Services, Nate Johnson. The Concord Veterans Service Center. The Diablo Flag Brigade, hopefully you saw the flags above the freeway today. The Warriors Watch, come on Sandy, where are you sitting? And the Combat Veterans Motorcycle Association. And finally, the All Wars Memorial Board. Let's have a hand for the veterans who defend our America. We also have some community organizations who particularly asked their groups to come here and be part of this ceremony today. And so I wanted especially to recognize first the 100 Club, which Dominique, Nancy, and Chris Wenzel is now the new president for them, because they give the money directly to any fallen police officer immediately in Contra Costa County. So there's a table back there that you can see. So a hand for the 100 Club, which is very direct beneficiary. And now I hope you're a member, if you're of Exchange Club, but if you're not, and I hope you're a member of one of these other organizations that promise to bring more people today, and please stand as I say the group. The Alamo Rotary Club, the Danville Rotary Club, the Doherty Valley San Ramon Rotary Club, nice group over there, thank you Patty. The Kiwanis, and members that are here for all of those. So thank you for making this a priority for your evening. As I introduce the elected officials who have taken time out of their schedule to be here, which means normally they've missed yet another meeting, because this is more important that we don't forget. And so I'll call to the podium, and they will say a few words. Mayor Storr from the town of Danville, Mayor Clarkson from San Ramon City, and Supervisor Candace Anderson. So if those three would please come forward. And for those of you that could not attend tonight, before they start, I'm going to introduce the other people. Our elected officials that are here today: State Senator Glazer, and if you're his representative, please stand. Assemblywoman Rebecca Bauer-Cahan, our former Assemblywoman Catherine Baker. Contra Costa County Supervisor Candace Anderson is going to speak. Our Danville co-hosts, in addition to Mayor Storr, we have council members Newell Arnrich and Lisa Blackwell and Renee Morgan, and our town manager Joe Calabrego. So thank you. And our San Ramon group, San Ramon Mayor Bill Clarkson, and the council members here are David Hudson, Scott Perkins, Phil Alone, Sabina Safar, and the city manager, Joe Gordon. Thank you for joining us. And finally, to our fire directors, President Yancey, Dominique again, and board members Don Parker, Matt Spaney, Jay Kerr, and Ryan Crean. And from our education community, we appreciate that. We have President Hurd, Rachel Hurd, and board members Greg Marvel, a member of Exchange, Susanna Ordway, Mark Jewett, Ken Mintz couldn't join us, and Superintendent Schmidt. And from our community college district, a new member, Andy Lee. So thank you and welcome to all of those people.
Thank you and welcome to the town of Danville. For all Americans, for all time, the phrase 9/11 will always evoke a special meaning, a memory of a moment in our history when the world we knew changed forever. It is fitting then that every year on this day Americans join together and honor the memory of 2,987 souls who perished that day. For each of these men and women have given more than my words can ever express, and I understand that it will never be enough. But for all that it's worth, this nation shares and continues to share in each of their sorrows. We recall and we remember how as ordinary people, we as a nation reacted that day. We as a nation must continue to reaffirm the significance of that moment each year. To understand and remember the importance of that event when our innocent lives were changed forever, we have witnessed death and we have witnessed destruction. And as a generation, that's what shaped us. We have seen our sons and we have seen our daughters leave the comfort of our loving embrace and fight to defend our freedoms and to defend those lost on that fateful day. We have lived through very difficult times, and we as Americans have continued to maintain our resolve. We have shown our enemies near and far that we will never allow our precious democracy to be threatened or disrespected. I stand here before you today, and I say to each of you, we have shared the pain. We have shared the disbelief. We have shared the sorrow. And as a nation, we will always remain strong and we will always remain vigilant. And as a nation, we are still in this together. We stand here today before the beautiful All Wars Memorial in all of its splendor to remember and to reflect on American campaigns and lives over the decades, those who have always protected our freedoms and democracy. Today, as we remember those lost on 9/11, I ask you to join me in faith that good will not only endure, it will prevail. We pray for those lives lost that day and pray for those who choose duty and self-sacrifice to protect this great nation and our freedoms. And to those first responders, those brave men and women who were just doing their job, we will forever be eternally grateful. Believe me when I say, as a nation and as this community, we will never forget. God bless those souls lost in that day, and God bless the United States of America.
Nice words, Robert. This afternoon, let us also remember those brave individuals of Flight 93, and in particular, 4 extraordinary men. These 4 men did not know each other prior to that day, but they will always be brothers in arms going forward. 3 of the 4 men were 6 foot tall or larger. They were athletes. In fact, all 4 of them played collegiate ball. 2 were rugby players. 1 played for a national team at UC Berkeley. 1 played baseball, and 1 was a national champion in judo. 3 of the 4 of them were presidents of their fraternities. These were extraordinary men that somehow fate brought together on that flight. 1 of them was late for the flight. In fact, he was the last man to board, Mark Bingham. The plane was delayed because of air traffic control issues and took off 42 minutes late. 3 minutes after they took off, the first planes began hitting the buildings. And by the time their flight was hijacked over Pennsylvania, they already knew through phone calls with their loved ones what was going on back in Washington and what was going on in New York. And they were well aware of their fate. They knew with absolute terror of what was going to be coming their way soon. And yet these men, Thomas Burnett, who lived in San Ramon, Mark Bingham, Todd Beamer, and Jeremy Glick, they created a plan and executed a plan to take control away from the terrorists. It is incumbent upon all of us to always remember the courage that it took for them to sacrifice their lives to protect their fellow countrymen. Let us never forget their names, and I'll say them again. Thomas Burnett, Jeremy Glick, and Todd Beamer, and Mark Bingham. Let us never forget their names either. Thank you.
We truly will never forget. Each of us, I'm sure, remembers the moment 18 years ago, very early in the morning when we turned on our TV, heard on the radio, received a phone call of the tragedies taking place on the fields in Pennsylvania, in New York, in the World Trade Center, and in Washington, D.C. at the Pentagon. Our lives changed that day forever. On that morning, I was a little bit younger, mother of 6 children. My youngest was 3, my oldest was 16. And I wondered, what was their future? What lay ahead for them? Would they have the same childhood, the younger ones, as their older siblings? All I knew as being the mother, my job was to keep them safe. My job was to do everything I could to protect them. But I wondered, what was the next target of attack? Was it going to be on the West Coast? In the days that followed, those of you who traveled BART, how many of you worried about the passenger next to you, what might be in their backpack or suitcase? Hours and days, we worried, we wondered, but as a country, we persevered. Yesterday at my Board of Supervisors meeting, we reflected on the events 18 years ago. We all agreed that despite the horror of these attacks, one thing that each of us felt that day was the strength of our nation, the true patriotism that each of us share, a feeling of unity that rose far above the political bickering and partisan politics. I'm moved each year as we come close to this remembrance date, as we watch TV, as we listen to the radio, to hear the stories that have evolved of the heroism of our first responders, and as Mayor Clarkson mentioned, of those ordinary individuals who became extraordinary heroes on that day, sacrificing their own lives to save others. We're now learning that the close to 3,000 lives we thought we lost because of this attack, that number is growing as we understand the health implications that many suffered who fearlessly and selflessly rushed in to help at ground zero. Each year, I'm grateful that we can come together as a community, and I express my thanks to Vice Mayor Stepper for organizing this every year with the Exchange Club, to giving us an opportunity as a community to break away from the world, to break away from the political bickering, break away from what might be happening in Sacramento and Washington, D.C., to just say, we as a community care. We as a community will never forget. We are Americans, one nation, under God, indivisible, and we shall continue to be so.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains and on to the prairies, on to the oceans, wide with flow. God bless America, my home, sweet home. From the mountains and on to the prairies, and on to the oceans, wide with flow. God bless America, my home, sweet home, my home. God bless America, my home, my home, my home. Sweet home, my own America, my home.
That was lovely, girls. Thank you so much for that's the Monte Vista Beauty Shop. I would like now to introduce our keynote speaker this evening. We actually heard him at lunch today at the Exchange Club. He did an amazing job. He'd been brought by Skip George, who's the co-coordinator of this event down here. He's ignoring me, but that's all right. So he did a great job telling us about the FBI today. But this is a man who was actually in New Jersey with the FBI across the river from the World Trade Towers and a part of the original and largest investigation ever done by the FBI. And so we're very pleased to have him here today. It happens that after he served there, he has finally, in 2016, was appointed the special agent in charge of San Francisco FBI and had the opportunity to live in this area and chose to move back to Danville. So we're very glad to have his family here as part of our community. He held leadership positions in the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children in Washington, D.C., which is very close in our hearts to our child abuse prevention goal for Exchange Club. He, prior to his promotion to San Francisco, and this one's a mouthful, he was the chief of the Digital Forensics and Analysis section of the Operational Technology Division, which tells you that he was able to set the scientific standards for digital media, which we hear about every single day. And so we appreciate the major task that he had come to do before he got here and is doing today as he works in Gilroy and other issues that he'll bring up today. Mr. Bennett, again, welcome back to Danville.
Good evening. 2,996. Say that one more time. 2,996. That is the number of people that perished in the 9/11 attacks in 2001. The student population at Monte Vista behind us is approximately 3,000. Imagine if tomorrow the entire student population disappeared. The impact on this community would be profound and inescapable. On September 11th, 2001, I was in the Newark, New Jersey FBI office. It was a beautiful fall morning, not unlike the one this morning here. I was part of a squad of 17 agents that worked narcotics and organized crime in New Jersey, and we were awaiting our new supervisor to hit the floor. He was on the floor for 17 minutes before our mission in the FBI would change forever. Many of us have stories or remember where we were on that day. I was on the 13th floor across the river from New York City when I heard somebody talking about a plane hitting the World Trade Center. To me, that wasn't strange at all. You see, while growing up in New York in the 60s and 70s, there were times when helicopters and small aircraft would crash somewhere in the city. While strange, it was not unheard of. I grew up in New York, not far from the city. I watched the towers go up in the 70s. It took years. I remember always using them as a landmark on trips with my family to determine how far I was from home. They dominated the skyline, and you could see them for miles. They anchored the city. I knew I was always close to home when they came into view. I watched the Twin Towers go up over years, probably close to a decade. And on 9/11, I watched them come down in a matter of seconds. Looking out of our window on the 13th floor, federal buildings all have 13 floors because we think ourselves brave enough to have them. I watched the North Tower pouring smoke into that brilliant blue sky. I remember thinking, that's a lot of smoke for a small plane. And at 9:03, as I stood there with my squad, we saw the second plane go into the South Tower. What stays with me to this day was not the fact that an airline just crashed into a building, but it was the size of the fireball that came out the other side. I knew at that moment this was not an accident and that there were going to be a lot of people killed. I knew I was witnessing a terrible historic event, and I knew the FBI was going to play a pivotal role in the investigation that was about to begin. 1 hour later at 10:05, I watched in disbelief as the South Tower collapsed. 25 minutes later, I saw the North Tower collapse. The mighty New York skyline, reshaped by hate and terror in less than 30 minutes. Images of that day still live with me. I saw a businessman, a Wall Street type, coming out of the New Jersey Penn Station, covered head to toe in dust. He looked and he moved like a ghost. He was still in a three-piece suit. His tie was still in place and his coat was buttoned. He carried a briefcase. He was in shock. He told me all he wanted to do was go home. We got him there. I saw jet fighters orbit Manhattan like angry hornets whose nest was just disturbed. I watched crowds gather on rooftops, watching the skyline change and burn. My friend and partner for years, Bill, told me he could not reach his mother. She worked in the South Tower. He told me he knew she'd be okay. After all, she survived the bombing of that tower several years before. I knew he was scared. She survived one terrorist attack, which she survived this one. And I got a call later that night that she made it home. Terrorists tried to kill her twice, but she wasn't having that. We soon learned that this terror attack was bigger than the tragic event at the World Trade Center. This was the timeline. American Airlines Flight 11 hits the North Tower at 8:45 a.m. United Airlines Flight 175 slams into the South Tower at 9:03. American Airlines Flight 77 crashes into the Pentagon at 9:43. And Flight 93 crashes into a field at 10:10. 1 hour and 30 minutes changed this country and the world forever. I was at Ground Zero that night and several days after. Smoke, fire, military trucks, sirens, floodlights, falling debris were everywhere. It was really surreal. If I had not just witnessed this event, I would have thought I was on a Hollywood set. Papers, tons of papers, still blew in that fall breeze. They covered everything. I remember one building had a gash down the front of it, a giant scar down its face. The gash was over 30 stories and was caused by the collapse of the South Tower. Part of the steel acted like a sword and sliced through 30 stories cleanly, leaving the other sides untouched. Firefighters sat covered in dust, stunned. They were missing over 300 brothers and sisters who ran into the towers to save people before they collapsed. Some cried, some sat by themselves. I saw rescue and cadaver dogs and their handlers exhausted by the grueling work. Some dogs had bloody paws that were wrapped in bandages because the debris in the glass tore into them. But this somber work had to be done, and I could sense the dogs really knew this was a race against time. In one quiet moment, I saw a handler spooning with his dog, both asleep. They had been on 24-hour rotations and were exhausted. Covered in dust and sweat, they laid on a dirty blanket on top of broken concrete. I'll never forget that image. A Port Authority Police Department task force officer was part of our investigative squad. He was a steel worker before he was a cop. He helped build the towers in his teens. He deployed to Ground Zero to begin the process of cutting away the twisted and burning steel to get to the headquarters of the Port Authority Police Department, because that was in the basement of the North Tower. 34 of his friends were killed that day. He honored me with a bolt that he cut from the last piece of steel removed from the pit. This bolt. It was a small thank you for the FBI and all we did to help lay his people to rest. The steel he cut away was used in the construction of the USS New York, a Navy ship commissioned in 2008 that now stands guard and protects this nation. Flight 93, the plane that crashed in Pennsylvania, originated in New Jersey. Our office was charged with that piece of the investigation. We spent months investigating the hijackers and the final moments of that aircraft. I was part of a small team that listened to the cockpit recordings. I can tell you, standing here today, there was a hell of a fight in the cockpit. And several passengers were determined to regain control of that aircraft, and they came close. I had to collect victim impact statements. These were to be used in future prosecutions. I spoke with several families and documented their grief and sorrow. One husband told me that he talked his wife into taking that fateful flight. She was scheduled to go out the night before, but he wanted to spend the evening together, and his grief and his guilt were overwhelming. But it was not all about grief and sorrow. I saw this country rise up and come together as one nation. There were no political parties, no economic classes, no races, no religions. We were all Americans. I saw the kindness of strangers, handing out water and food. I saw children putting up lemonade stands and writing cards to us, thanking us for our efforts. Many restaurants around the country traveled to New York City and provided food to the first responders. Some stayed for months. Out of this tragedy came great hope. I saw the good in people and many examples of the unity that built this great nation. I saw what we are capable of doing when we put our differences aside and work together. I'll never forget that. Our brothers and sisters in many nations around the world profess their solidarity, their love and support for the United States. The terrorists sought to destroy democracy, our freedom, and our love for our country. They failed. Reflecting on the context of this profoundly sad and tragic event, I hope we remember 2,996 people lost their lives on September 11, 2001. By pausing and reflecting, we honored those brave men and women who rushed into burning buildings to save lives. We honor the citizens who lost their lives. We honor the military families who gave the ultimate sacrifice. And we honor the lessons that we learned on that fateful day. We learned that terrorists cannot destroy democracy and freedom. We learned that the free world stands in solidarity, united against evil. We learned that we are strong enough and brave enough to face the challenge when we come together in the spirit of love, peace, and kindness. We learned the strength of this great nation has always and will always reside in its people. Thank you very much.
So I see the steel is still sitting here, and it's very clear that the recollections and the memories will stay with Jack forever. The people that are here in this audience that you've heard already or are around you share their stories with you, and these deeds and pain stay with them forever. And so that is why we never forget 9/11, because they have shared their experiences at the All Wars Memorial, and they've made us proud to be Americans.
If tomorrow all the things were gone I'd worked for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife, I'd thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I'll gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, Detroit down to Houston, New York to LA, where there's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say that I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I'll gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
That's one memory that we all share. And again, I'd like to have a big hand for our speaker who was able to share stories that we had never heard before. in all the memories that he holds with him. Aren't we glad that we have 15,000 FBI working for us? So. And that was the other half. That was the barber shop from Monte Vista. Well done. Thank you so much. Very stirring. So, all right. Okay. We move in towards the end part of our ceremony, and I'm sorry we got a little bit of a late start this afternoon. But right now we'd like to recognize that we have many Gold Star families who have chosen to spend this day. It's always a hard day, isn't it? Probably every day is a hard day, but especially this day, and have chosen that to spend this with you. And I hope that they feel your love and support here as they share this day with us. And I'd like to ask Michael Staff Sergeant Michael De Leon. He's in a Marine recruiting is actually in Danville, and a U.S. Marine. And we've asked him to be part of our ceremony to give each of these families a yellow rose. And we have over 28 families in Contra Costa who have lost a loved one and face this reality. So while this can, of course, neither words nor a rose can express what's in our hearts and prayers for you today, this is only a small symbol. I would like to recognize those that are with us today. Yolanda Vega Montalvo, the mother of Senior Airman Jonathan Antonio Vega Yellner, U.S. Air Force, killed in action April 29, 2008 in Afghanistan. They're from Lafayette. Mary Tollefson, the mother of Private Benjamin B. Tollefson, U.S. Army, killed in action December 31st, 2008 in Iraq, from Clayton. Thank you for joining us. Monica Zhu, the mother of Second Lieutenant Peter Zhu, who was at West Point. He passed away February 2019. Tatiana Odson, mother of Alfred Komlev, Airman, First Class, U.S. Air Force, killed at his base in Italy. So we remember him today. Alfred, thank you. Roxanne Langevin, mother of Colonel Sean Langevin, the 173rd Airborne Brigade Combat Team, U.S. Army, killed in action November 9th, 2007 in Afghanistan from Walnut Creek. Our hearts also go out to John and Wendy Hallett, the parents of Captain John Lewis Hallett. They are from Richmond. He was killed in action August 25th, 2009. And to the family of Diane Layfield, the mother of Lance Corporal Layfield, U.S. Marine Corps, killed in action April 6, 2004. Both of these people have joined us other times and are not here today, but our hearts go out to them as well. So, thank you. So your grace in the face of this loss fills us all with compassion and gratitude for America. We know that our safety was built on your son's devotion to patriotism, and we love having you here, and we'll give you a hug afterwards. Thank you so much for being part of this ceremony and allowing us to share a prayer for your sons and daughters. So. Our wreath laying will close our ceremony today, after which the wreath will be conveyed to the Danville All Wars Memorial Building for the memorial there for Chachi Corral and also for Evan Moldyke. So I'd like to ask now, as we do this ceremony, that each part will follow the other part automatically. And we have a very special beginning today. So Yolanda Vega Montalvo, Gold Star Mother, is going to sing the first two verses of Amazing Grace up here, after which the bagpiper will follow, and our wreath laying people, our crew, as I say, will join us, because I'm going to introduce each one of those. I especially appreciative of Lieutenant Moose is assisting this today from the Danville Police Department. We also have with us represented the San Ramon Valley Fire Protection District firefighter, the Danville Police Officer of the Year, Darren Alcantara, and we have Mickey Gannett, who you met earlier, who is a Pearl Harbor survivor, and Robert Crooker, who is not 100, as Mickey is going to be, but Robert is only 97, and he is joining us here. So he is also a World War II veteran. And finally, he's gonna make it. Good. And finally, the U.S. Marine recruiter, whom you met earlier, Staff Sergeant Michael De Leon. And our bagpiper is Sergeant Ryan Sullivan of the Contra Costa Sheriff's Office. At the end of the wreath laying, we ask that you please remain standing for a very special role of echo taps played by Robert McHale, sophomore at San Ramon High School, Scout Troop 803, and echoed this year for the first time by his father and scout leader, Joe McHale. For those who served in World War II, to those who are serving today in our fire district, our police departments, our armed services, whom you are here to celebrate today, we remember New York City, the Pentagon, Somerset County, Pennsylvania, in this 9/11 memorial quote. Through blurred eyes, we find the strength and courage to soar beyond the moment. We look to the future, knowing we can never forget the past. May God bless America.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. On behalf of my Gold Star family that's here, we want to thank you from the bottom of our heart. We're very, very grateful. You know that we're less than 1% of the entire population. And it's heartwarming to see you. In 1772, an English poet and clergyman, John Newton, penned the words to this poem, and then in 1776 it became a hymn. It's called Amazing Grace. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was blind,
Thank you so much for everyone for being here. Thanks for our speakers tonight. Thanks for everyone for participating. The Exchange Club invites you to stick around for a while, mingle. We've got ice cream, and pick up a flyer for any of the students that you may have that are interested. Thank you again. Good night.